Hello and welcome to episode 2 of our podcast. My name's Graeme Thewliss. I'm joined today by Derek Watson.
Hi Graeme, thanks for having us back.
You're very welcome. Big shout out to Stephen, who's currently recovering at the moment as well. He'll join us on further episodes as well. But we got to the end of the season. In the end, a fairly pleasant and comfortable end to the season.
I thought you were going to start by saying we didn't get relegated.
No. It didn't even cross my mind. Ultimately, it was the way the fixtures fell for us was quite useful. Ultimately, we saw us defeat St Johnstone on the opening day, and that from that point kind of felt like we'd just got ourselves into safety from that point forward. So pressure off a bit.
I remember when we were sitting here last time, though, Graeme, and I kind of felt, even though that things weren't going particularly well at that point, we never really had much doubt, did we? We were both saying, I think that we'll stay up, and I remember us actually saying, win those first couple of games, or get a result in the first couple of games, and that's it. And that's exactly what happened.
That's that you never want to find yourself in a situation where you just need a result. Mm-hmm. We got a result, and then from that point forward, it was pretty comfortable in that as well. I think highlight from the remaining sort of post-split games was thumping Kelly in a game which sort of slow, and then all of a sudden just lit up with sort of 3 absolutely tremendous goals as well. Was kind of a really nice way to round off the season for me.
Aye, it also allowed us to relax, didn't it? It allowed us to relax. But I think what it done more than anything is the end of that season, it gave fans something to look forward to going into next season. And for me, that was the most important thing. It was, we'd had a change in managers, we'd had a change in pace at the football club. But more than anything, I think people were thinking, let's just have a springboard here and let's move forward and let's do that positively. And that's exactly what happened. And I know that we'll probably touch on this. There's the manager has now left. And some of those players that were in there have moved on as well, but I think people can now really see that next season could be quite special.
Yeah, and if we'll come on to this, we'll have Kyrk MacMillan coming to join us later, so we'll delve into this a little bit further in that respect as well, in terms of having a style and a kind of a desire about how we want to play and things like that as well, and the sort of management around it as well. Obviously, as you said, our guest last time, Michael, I don't think it was us, I don't think it was anything personal to do with us, but Michael Wimmer departed Motherwell, which felt like a bit of a shock with the announcement of when it was, which I think was like a Tuesday afternoon. Was Michael Wimmer would be departing to head back to Germany. I don't think we're telling any state secrets here either. After we'd interviewed him last time, and he explained that his family was struggling a little bit. After we'd finished recording, his family was struggling just a little bit in terms of the distance from him being from home. So ultimately, it was a surprise, but then also immediately kind of understood where he was coming from.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think what was most disappointing for Motherwell fans is everyone was looking forward to Michael's style of play and Michael's philosophy coming into the new season. But for me, first and foremost, I think he came in and he done the job that he set out to do. It was very much, you need to keep Motherwell Football Club in the top flight. He done that comfortably, as we've touched on. But I think it's really important to note that, if we're really talking about why he left, for me, and maybe this is pertinent because I've got a young child now, I think you need to put your family first. And as much as people probably would much rather that didn't happen, it has, and we wish him very well going forward. I think that when all's said and done, Motherwell fans will probably reflect on his time here pretty well, and I think they'll look at it and say, do you know what, the guy came in here, he done what he's expected to do, he's left, and then there's no sour taste.
Absolutely, 100%. And I came away from our interview with him feeling very enthused on the footballing side in that respect. Just a case of what's going to happen right now is going to what we need to happen right now, and what's going to happen in the summer is what I want to happen. So it's mainly just a question of sort of maybe just a disappointment in terms of wondering what could have been in that respect.
On that, Graeme, he's also left us with Amit, who's still here, still under contract as well. So I'm sure when the new players will be coming in this season, they'll be getting quite strong high fives for the assistant manager if he's still around.
Hopefully less high fives than he did when he arrived, with just the sheer number of bodies in there as well. But in terms of more high fives for players incoming, we have the worst kept secret in Scottish football, I think, or certainly in Lanarkshire football, as Jordan McGee has joined us on a pre-contract which was never really announced, but then kind of was by I think everybody else other than Jordan McGee, and Lucas Fadinger, who's joined us from Reindolf Altach as well. Jordan McGee, we obviously know a good amount about. He's a fairly local boy as well.
Yes, actually one of my best friends, Gary's cousins with Jordan, so I've known Jordan for many years and was delighted to hear that he wanted to come to Firth Park. You know, he's from East Kilbride, born and brought up over there. Some of his family go and watch Motherwell every week, so he's been really, really excited about getting his teeth in and getting involved. And you know, without being biased saying that I've known him for a while, I think when a football club and a football player leaves a football club, the first thing I do if we pick him up is look at the comments underneath, you know, the social media posts. And it seems that Dundee fans absolutely loved him being there. You know, he's a player that can play in many different positions. He's a player that works very hard, and I believe we already knew he was coming to Motherwell before the Dundee derby. Towards the end of the season there, went out, put in a sterling performance and got a goal. So I don't think it ever affected, you know, the way that he was going to play, and I think that I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do in Claret and Amber as well.
We've sort of seen a number of players depart the club as well. So ultimately, you know, a big thanks to all of them for their contribution over this season and previous seasons in there as well. Personally, disappointed to see Big Dan Casey go more than anything else. Just a player I thoroughly enjoyed watching more than anything else. Just a big, brave, slightly daft laddie, but just the commitment which he offered absolutely everything that he did was a real pleasure for me to watch more than anything else. And obviously a number of guys who have been here for a few years as well have moved on as well to either other clubs or about to announce other clubs as well in there as well. So a big thanks to them. Was anyone in particular you're sad to see go?
I think Casey's a big loss for us, you know, and I think there's players there that have left that weren't naturally first team starters, you know, but I think always gave their all. I think Harry Payton's probably a very good example of that, you know, regardless of how many times he came onto the park, you could always see that him and Davor as well, they gave 110% every time that they put on a Motherwell jersey. So I wish them all the very best going forward, and it'll be interesting to see where they end up. I think Casey's the standout, isn't he? Yeah. He was excellent for Motherwell and scored some important goals in his time here, and was solid at the back as well. So just to echo exactly what you've said, Graeme, wish them all the very best. And
while the football season went on for, it felt almost about 10 years at that point as well, we did have our final game of the Scottish football season, which saw our man Lennon Miller make his first Scotland start as well, as he headed to Vaduz to make his Scotland debut. And I have to say, like, it was not a game that I was enthralled with, other than just watching our kid Lennon go and do that. And it was remarkable to see kind of just quite how comfortable he looked there. I mean, it wasn't the greatest standard of opposition, but again, he's standing next to that guy that's just won Serie A, and at no point looked out of place there either.
I think that's really important to note, because I've seen the social media reaction to, you know, Lennon playing over in Liechtenstein, and I mean, as Motherwell fans, right, you watch him week in, week out, and you know what he's capable of, but to see so many fans of other clubs saying, geez, this guy's really got something, I think, well, we've been telling you that for how long? But for me, you've hit the nail on the head. You know, he's next to Gilmore, he's got Robertson on the park, he's got world-class players around him, and he looked comfortable, he looked just as good as the rest of them, and I would actually argue that he probably put in a man of the match performance. So I add an extra 0 onto the end of that price tag is what I've seen people saying, isn't it?
Yeah, just a real joy and a real pleasure. I think you always take pleasure of seeing players from your club side going and representing on an international basis as well. And again, it's such a good look for the club as well, for a guy that's I see a kid that's just so prepared and just so ready to go and step into that arena and just not be fazed by it in any way at all. So just a real pleasure more than anything else to take out of that. So hopeful we'll see more of him in a Scotland jersey. As always, very hopeful to see more of him in a Motherwell jersey, but I suspect that might be the end of that particular road.
Aye, let's enjoy what we've had. Let's see what the summer brings. But I think for me, the only thing about Lennon's Scotland debuts that surprised me is how it took so long. You know, I thought that he'd been there long before now. It was great to see him come on as a substitute at Hampden, then it was great to see him play abroad, and I don't think that'll be the last we see him in Scotland Blue. You know, I think that obviously we've got a really strong midfield in there, but I'd like to think that he's going to make his stay there, and he's going to be there for a long time to come.
It was very much my feeling as well, is that when he was, particularly when he's still being selected by the under 21s, and like I understand that as well, because the under 21s were trying to qualify, and that's fine. Like he's Max Johnson as well, another sort of ex-Motherwell boy as well, turning up for those squads too. Good, glad they're playing, glad they're involved, but all the way through that, it's just like Lennon's kind of what he should aspire to be, what he should be aspiring to be, is looking at Billy Gilmore and the career path that he's had in terms of ensuring that he's getting the opportunity to play games and taking on different challenges and things like that, just from a process of just exposing himself to that level of talent. because that's what he should be aspiring to be ultimately.
And I think it's quite fitting that you mentioned Max Johnson as well there. You know, if you look at the amount of Motherwell players that have went on and played for Scotland over the last 10 years, it just goes and highlights, you know, how important and how good a job they're doing down in the academy at Motherwell. And I think it's probably, I know it's been said for many, many years, but I'd argue that we've probably got the best academy in Scotland in terms of developing young players and giving them a pathway. And to see people like Max and Lennon go on and represent Scotland coming out of Fir Park is really special for me.
Absolutely. So crack on. So we have our guest joining us, who is Kyrk MacMillan, who'll be taking us through what has been a very interesting year at Fir Park, I think. Welcome, Kyrk MacMillan, who's joined us on our podcast. First of all, thanks for taking the time to join us. I was going to say a busy time for you. I don't know if there is a quiet time of the year for you.
Not so far, no. If there is, I've not found it yet, that's for sure.
Fantastic. Obviously, it was a fairly, I think, tumultuous season. We were just talking about how the footballing side of the season ended, which was nice and calm and nice and relaxed, and ultimately we had a very pleasant time. But in terms of the club, both on and off the field at various points last year, it's a fairly shock introduction to you for the course of the season as well.
You're still here, Kyrk. What's going on?
Still here, still smiling.
Just happy to get to the end of the season ultimately.
Do you know what? I said to the guys the week before the end of the season, I'm really happy this season's done. You know, that's a really sad comment to make, considering it's your first season as chairman. And then I said to my wife, right, we'll go away for a couple of days, we'll go up north and get a bit of relaxation before the Ross County game, kind of make our way towards Dingwall. And I got a phone call from Brian midway through the holiday to say, you need to come back to Fir Park. And I said to him, look, I'm about 4 or 5 hours drive away, Brian, I can't come back. And without saying another word, he said, when can you get here? So I thought, okay, something serious happened. So I come back to Fir Park, and obviously we had the Michael situation at that point, which wasn't great. So yeah, it was supposed to be a quite kind of calm into the season. Didn't end up happening, unfortunately.
And yeah, obviously we're reaching a part of the season with a lot of ins and outs. We've seen again today as well a further announcement, and some of the more players that are going to be departing who are not going to continue with Motherwell. And then obviously the sort of ins and outs season kicked off with the manager Michael Wimmer departing Motherwell as well, which I think Derek and I mentioned earlier, it felt like a surprise rather than a shock, I think, in that respect. It's something which I think you guys had been aware of in the building as well, but again, not how anyone really wanted that to end, really.
So no, we were aware there was a situation with Michael's family back in Germany that was there and it was kind of in the back of Michael's head. And listen, it's difficult for anybody living away from family. I've done that myself for long enough to know it has its own challenges. There was a fresh situation that arrived just before the Ross County game, which we got made aware of. Michael said he had to take some time to kind of evaluate that back in Germany, and ultimately that's kind of what happened. And he went home and spent some time with the family. Listen, it wasn't a situation that we wanted, it wasn't the outcome that we wanted, but ultimately we've got a duty of care to anybody that works with the football club. And yeah, it was an unfortunate situation for us to be in, to be finding another manager so quickly. Michael was doing a really, really good job, so it was really, not a situation we wanted for sure.
And it's not a situation you wanted, Kyrk, but I think when we touched on this earlier, when you're reflecting his time here, he came in and he done the job that he was set out to do. So I suppose for the executive board, you can obviously take a bit of faith and a bit of confidence in what he's done recruiting the manager, and you got the right man in at the right time.
I think so. I think the principles of how we kind of brought Michael in were, I think, pretty good. We wanted. We were quite clear that we wanted to probably bring a bit more of excitement back to people, give them a reason to come back to Fir Park, right? And that's not meant as a disrespectful comment to anybody that's been there before, but, ultimately people want to be entertained when they come to the football. I know I do as a supporter. And that's kind of, we had that hat on, definitely. So obviously there's a kind of diligence process and you go through all of that on the more professional side. But ultimately, we need to kind of make sure that it's an identity around the club, it's an identity of how we play football on a Saturday, and give people a reason to come back. So we worked to that first time, and second time now as well. And
kind of along those lines as well, obviously, is that presumably that's the same sort of thinking that's led us to Jens. Just hugely interested from a fan perspective in terms of how you find Copenhagen's assistant manager to be the guy that steps in. You just, I've done a lot of digging into learning about Jens and his background and his coaching and finding out what sort of style he plays in that respect as well. But just from the club perspective, just curious how you go around how that ends up on your, whether it's a CV ends up on your desk, whether it's someone that's identified, whether it's through contacts. Just curious as to what that process was.
So there was about 100 applications that came in for the role, and some really, really good applications. There was, again, going back to, I think we were pretty clear, that kind of subcommittee of the board, so it's, Brian's chief executive, Greg from the Welsh Society, and myself, we were pretty clear that, the style of football and everything, that kind of journey that we've been on in those kind of few months with Michael was really positive. So it was, first of all, okay, what profiles do we think are aligning with that? What profiles do we think are going to continue that journey, not to kind of rip it up and start again? So from there, there's probably a kind of automatic sifting process for some of the profiles. And then from there, we do a bit of a kind of deeper dive into them. So there's kind of data analysis sets that are created by an external body that allows us to kind of dig in a bit more to their stats in terms of PPDA and XG and all these kind of things. That allows us to kind of see, okay, is it a manager that plays on the front foot, maybe just doesn't talk like that, but actually enacts it on the pitch. So we go through that process. Ultimately, Jens came through a contact that landed in my phone. So it wasn't one of the initial applications that came through the email in the club type route. But there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot that gets done through network. That's been a learning curve for me probably over the last few months as well. And kind of building and kind of growing that network is really important for sure. So yeah, we went through that process and ultimately, we landed on Jens. There was some good people in there, but I think we found a really good guy.
Kyrk,
sure.
you spent some time in Copenhagen in a professional capacity.
Yeah.
How do you convince someone to move from Copenhagen to Motherwell?
Just sell the dream. That's what it's all about. No, I think, ultimately Jens, we snuck Jens to the stadium last week. I picked him up at Glasgow Airport, snuck him in the back.
It wasn't your dad again?
It wasn't, no. It was another bald guy this time, but it wasn't my dad.
Listen, if you need another bald guy at any point, just let me know.
We still enjoy that one, actually. My dad's story sitting in the stand. But no, I picked him up at Glasgow Airport last week, kind of late at night. We wanted to get him into the stadium, but it was really important, again, that we kind of go down the confidentiality route. Ultimately, Jens was still under contract, still in employment. We did the official thing with Copenhagen as well, because of course, it's important that we're quite transparent there, and we do things in a transparent and open manner, and don't do anything that we shouldn't be doing. So no, we got Jens along. We spent a bit of time with him in the stadium. Took him up to DL to see the training facilities, and then we had a kind of long night. We had dinner together, kind of looking at presentations, looking at, again, learning a bit more about how he likes to play football, and spend a bit of time together just as a person as well. I've mentioned it before, but we need to bring good people to the club. Not just somebody that plays really, really good football. So both of the things need to be right. And that's, ultimately we kind of came to the decision quite quickly, like, this is our guy and this is who we want to move forward with. And, I think that the feeling was mutual. So he's really excited about coming over and, getting started into the role. What
can Motherwell fans expect? You touched on that style of football there. What is he going to bring to the table?
I think he's a very honest character. I think probably in terms of the kind of Danish aspects, there's kind of no nonsense, tell it as it is type style. And, we really like that. So there's no beating around the bush. It's, you get what you get, which I think we really liked. He likes to play football on the front foot, which is really important. Again, press high with the pitch, be quite, aggressive in terms of how we kind of equip ourselves on the pitch. So that style is probably going to continue, or will continue for sure. I think the fitness aspect for us is something that we want to continue with the players as well. That leads into, of course, the profiles that we bring into the club too. So, one of the things that we've been quite focused on, and that was coming through with Michael too, is how do we get the stats of the players up to a level that we're kind of feeling that they're able to, give everything, leave everything on the pitch. So, again, really boring stat. Most teams on average will run about 95, 96, 90 kilometres over a 90 minutes between the 10 outfield players. Ultimately, what Michael was working to, probably kind of similar philosophy to Jens, is how do we get that to 105, 110 kilometres? Because ultimately what that means is you run that extra 10%, you've got an extra man around the ball. So again, that was kind of what we wanted to see, or what we wanted to get to the profile that we ended up kind of, bringing into the club. So similar style there, high energy, we'll see where it takes us. But no, it's exciting for sure.
I have to say, I dug out, it was an old sort of Scandinavian podcast with Jens as well, talking about it, and it was when you're used to dealing with managers, particularly in the UK, and nobody says anything at any point, because and I don't blame them for that in any respect either, because the moment you say something, that's the headline, and then that's the thing which people will use as a stick to beat you with. Jens spoke pretty comfortably for the best part of 40 minutes, and again was very upfront, very blunt, very clear about what he expected, what he was doing, why he was doing it, the process of removing players ultimately from the club. I think it was Gothenburg that he arrived in as well. Just explaining, like, we weren't good enough, we weren't working hard enough, bye. And it was just really sort of clear process around these sort of non-negotiables and clarity around exactly what was being expected of his players.
He's worked at big clubs, you know, between FC Copenhagen, Sparta Prague, obviously managing Gothenburg. They're big clubs to be involved in. And it was really down to basics, right? It was, you know, look after the changing room, be respectful to each other. So there's probably a kind of really nice blend of standards, let's say, but also being able to kind of, you know, talk to people and treat people as humans as well. So a really nice balance in there. So it's not, you know, probably same for myself and companies, you know, it can never just be one thing, right? It can't just be all carrot or all stick. There has to be a bit of both, right? And a bit of give and take. And ultimately for everybody, that's probably how you get the most, right, out of people. And I think he had that same philosophy. So again, you know, it was kind of really seamless conversation on that front. I think we kind of shared really similar aspirations for what we wanted. We want to be ambitious, right? You know, I make no secret about the fact I'd love to see Motherwell winning the cup again, right? And it's not promising everybody that's going to happen next season. Don't misunderstand me when I say that. But
I'm doing a press release, don't worry.
But there's nothing wrong with having that ambition. Yeah. You know, we want a manager to feel that too. I don't want to, you know, be in the conversation where we're just feeling like, okay, we need to low block constantly and, you know, try and navigate other teams. It's about how we impose ourselves, and you need to have a bit of confidence about you to do that. And he's definitely got that.
I think on that, you know, and I'm not saying it's just because they're a manager from overseas, but I think you've seen that philosophy with Michael when he went to Ibrox. You know, he wasn't scared to have a go. And I think when you look at a lot of managers that have probably lived and breathed this environment and been brought up in Scotland, they value certain teams of a higher standard.
Sure.
You know, and it almost feels to me like when you bring someone in from overseas, they don't have the same fear when they go into these matches. But Graeme, just on something that you touched on, I listened to probably the same podcast, I believe, very sadly, both of us. But the thing that jumped out for me, not what you were talking about, was the thing where he was talking about his experience at Gothenburg, but also his experience as a player at Norwich, and how embedded in the community that was. And I thought that seems like a really good fit for the football club as well. You know, he was talking about, you know, the players have got time in their contracts that they have to go out and spend time with local high schools or with, you know, your community programmes, etc. And I thought if that's something that we could really embed, that's really positive for me as well.
You know, Jens is used to working in fan-owned environments. Gothenburg's a fan-owned club, and a, you know, very engaged support base there. So he was, you know, everything we talked about in terms of the Welsh Society, and obviously that's part of our conversation too. In terms of our model and how we work, you know, he's fully aware of that, fully, you know, on board with it. So there was no real concerns there. Probably similar for Michael, right, in the German model too. And again, that's something, you know, we're quite upfront with, quite open with the managers in terms of expectations, or, you know, what we're looking for in terms of, you know, engaging with the support. You know, maybe spending a bit of time with different, you know, groups or whatever that might be in and around the club. And he's super on board with that as well. So it was a really, positive engagement.
Do we know how much he remembers about his goal against Airdrie United? Or is that just a passing thing?
He did remember he'd scored in Scotland, but the goal itself, I'm not sure, but he did remember he'd scored.
I did dig through the Norwich website, can't find it. It's nowhere to be found as well. But a bit more kind of about yourself, Kyrk, in that respect as well. And obviously, as you say, it's been a sort of whistle-stop tour of a year almost for you in your respect. How have you found stepping into the role, both within the club and Motherwell as well?
It's been a whirlwind. Listen, don't get me wrong, it's probably the boyhood dream, right? If you can't play for your club, then you're, you know, probably the next best thing. But it's it's been fantastic. It's been a lot to take on, a lot to get used to. But it's been really good fun. You know, everybody's been really welcoming, really kind of engaging. Probably just the big thing for me is how much people give, right? Even just the guys in the exec board, the amount of time that goes into it, you know, and it is remarkable. Same for the Welsh Society, disabled supporters, heritage. There's so much that goes into different parts of the club, and it's not a big team, right? It's not a big staff behind the scenes in terms of the people in the office, but everybody, you know, goes way above and beyond, and they do it because they love the club, and everybody wants the best, right? I know it's an emotional game, and I've done it as well. You shout abuse, and you think, oh, okay, there's people behind that as well. So that's, listen, when you get to see the faces and you get to meet the people too, you kind of join those dots probably. But no, listen, for me coming in, everybody's been fantastic. So no, it's been brilliant so far.
I feel like every time I see you as well, you and Brian are almost kind of joined at the hip at various points as well, and always like in very deep in conversation. Doesn't matter whether it's a Tuesday evening or whether it's a Wednesday night at a game or a Saturday afternoon at a game. The two all seem very, very, very engaged. That seems like a very strong relationship between the two.
Yeah, definitely. I probably speak to Brian more than my wife at this point, to be honest. No, it's been, I think that's important, right? We want to move the club forward on and off the pitch. And it's probably, and this is, again, you know, this is not meant as a disrespectful comment in any way, but I think we found that there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot of things that, you know, we came in and saw fresh opportunities with in terms of how do we uplift the revenue, how do we hopefully get people back into the stadium, get people, you know, back, you know, coming on a Saturday. How do we grow the women's game? So there's so many things there. And listen, sometimes that's just fresh eyes coming in. You kind of, you know, come in and think, okay, there's opportunity. And for that, you need to kind of be in kind of lockstep, I think, for sure. Ultimately, you need to challenge each other, right? What's been quite nice is probably tell each other when we think each other's wrong, and that's really great too. But listen, the guys on the exec board have been absolutely brilliant. They've gone way above and beyond over the last 6 months or so. You know, probably spend 5 days a week at Fir Park, you know, and amongst people doing full-time jobs as well. And it's, you know, they're doing it because they love the club ultimately, which is brilliant. So, you know, the relationship's been really good. The dialogue and the relationship with society has been brilliant. And it feels like everybody's pulling in the same direction, which has been really nice. But yeah, it's been a long journey over the last 6 months for sure.
I remember speaking to you towards the end of last season, Kyrk, and results maybe weren't going as well as we could, and you were sweating. Are you beginning to enjoy the games a bit more now? Can you relax?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's it was rubbish as a supporter when you get beat, right? And now it's just horrendous.
You feel more pressure almost.
Yeah, probably a sense of responsibility as well, right? As ridiculous as that sounds, but you do feel that sense of, you know, it has such a big implication on everybody. You come into the office on a Monday after maybe get beat on the Saturday, and it's not the most upbeat environment. But on the flip side, you know, you have that result away at Ibrox and everybody's over the moon, and you know, you end up in the pub afterwards. It's good fun, right? So it's a bigger roller coaster than it was before. I broke my Achilles in Copenhagen watching Motherwell from my own sofa, and I thought that was probably my low point. But no, there's been lower points over the last 6 months for sure.
And obviously as well, we're seeing kind of bits and pieces of the Wellness Society and projects around that, which are almost being quite physically integrated into the stadium as well. When you're looking at sort of Memorial Garden and things like that as well. Yeah. Kind of what's happening there, or what are the sort of next steps in that respect as well?
So hopefully when people come back after the summer, there'll be quite big changes. We're working with the Heritage Trust just now on redeveloping a couple of areas of the stadium. That's going to bring in a bit more of the kind of history of the club. So that's in the Cooper, a little bit in the main stand as well, and a couple of different areas. Ultimately, what that means is that we can open up the stadium to do stadium tours. Again, that's another hopefully commercial revenue driver for the football club. A bit more engagement from our side with the community trust as well. You know, we had Dawn, who runs the trust, along at our first board meeting. You know, we've got some meetings coming up there as well to see how we kind of increase that collaboration and dialogue, because that's a really important one. Probably the biggest learning for me coming into the club has been how big of an impact the community trust has in the local area, which, you know, I think we need to do more to highlight from the club side. On, you know, the kind of stadium itself, you know, there's kind of development with digitalisation of different parts of the stadium that hopefully people will see when they come back after the summer. Development of a couple of the different function suites and kind of hospitality areas. There's a lot going on. There's another project going on with a beer garden installation with Welsh Society, in conjunction with Welsh Society, which we think is going to be brilliant as well. And, you know, all of these things are really designed to help, you know, increase the revenue of the football club. Everybody talks about this financial gap, right? And it is there, but I'm absolutely convinced we can close that by doing things ourselves. So first and foremost, it's been how do we do that? How do we get more out of what we've got, and ultimately get people back into the stadium and make them want to spend time and money at Fir Park.
On the beer garden stuff there, Kyrk, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm very excited about the project itself. I think it'll be great, and Greg and Sean Bailey have done a lot of work on that. I'm hoping that it might be in place for the Hertha game, so it's probably only right that we mention Hertha Berlin and your connection there. And I wonder, it's your father-in-law that's involved at Hertha. Is he still going to speak to you once we beat them in the 25th of July?
Well, he's here with my brother-in-law as well, and a couple of guys from Hertha, so I hope they're staying with us as well, so I hope the atmosphere is good after. But no, listen, it's really good to kind of bring that one, I guess, to life. It's been in family WhatsApp groups for a little while now, so getting out into the public's been really good fun. And no, it's really exciting. I remember as a kid going to watch us play, kind of big, kind of glamour friendlies, I guess. And they haven't been around for a while, so it's a bit more work to make it happen, right, because of the League Cup and trying to kind of squeeze it in between different fixtures. But hey, listen, everybody's been really helpful with the league, helping us to bring it together, and we're looking forward to it. So yeah, we're trying to make a kind of bigger deal of it in terms of getting people down to the stadium before the match, so there'll be some kind of new installations of hopefully, weather permitting, some outside hospitality areas and engagement areas. Probably going back to the Danish thing and me living there, right? You can go to football matches in different places and you see how things are done in terms of fan zones, in terms of food and beverage, spaces for children as well. And we're going to use this Hertha game to basically trial run a lot of that stuff. And we'll see, from there, how do we kind of include more of that in the match day going forward. I mean, for me, football here could do more in general. That's not just Motherwell, to make the fan experience better. And hey, listen, why not be at the front of that and try and be innovative with what we do? So, yeah, Hertha's going to be a big game on the pitch and obviously off the pitch as well, to give us hopefully kind of new ideas coming our way.
Hopefully tickets on sale soon, and hopefully there'll be a number of German fans travelling over as well.
It seems so, yeah. I didn't realise how many supporters clubs they've got in the UK, so that's going to be good fun. No, it's going to be good. We're really looking forward to it. And yeah, I think tickets are on sale in the next couple of weeks actually for it. Yeah.
Stuff.
Just in terms of talking about ticket sales and things like that as well, obviously a big part of the summer. Quite literally across the road from where we're sitting, there's a big giant board talking about Motherwell season tickets as well, which was I've not been up here in a wee while, so I was like, oh great. Yeah. How was that going for over the summer as well, the season ticket sales?
We're probably on par with where we were this time last year, which is not too bad considering obviously the managerial change, slap bang in the middle of it, which wasn't great. We took the decision to extend the early bird deal for supporters because of that, right? I think there's probably a little bit of hesitation for people in terms of, again, what am I watching? So we wanted to extend the early bird. So there's a little bit of time left on that one. Hey, listen, ultimately, Scottish football depends on supporters, right? We don't have necessarily the big commercial deals that other leagues have got. So, we're really relying on the supporters coming to the stadium. That's why the brand of football has to be good, and it's why, it's really important that as many people as can, come along, season tickets, spend money in the stadium. But we've got to do our part as well, right? The experience has got to be good, and you've got to watch good product, and ultimately everything that you engage with at Fir Park and with the club has got to be on point as well. So yeah, lots to do, but getting there.
Just to mention as well, obviously we had the sad news of the passing of young Zach Gunn as well the other day. Saw that the fundraiser that was put together for that had raised, I think it was £20,000 now, including a donation from the club and the society as well. Just to shout that out more than anything as well. I think Zach was something that touched all of us, and something that we all recognised in there as well. So if you can still, with the fundraiser continues to be there and be online, I'll drop the link to that for the description of the episode here as well. So if you're able to, please do donate to that as well. It's a smashing wee kid put in a horrible situation. So yeah, just to pass on our thoughts to Zach's family in that respect as well. Grand. Ultimately, I think that's kind of everything that I had on my list to run Kyrk over the coals here.
We're not asking about Lennon. We'll let him off.
So what about Lennon?
It's a big summer ahead.
Absolutely. So, Kyrk, as I said, huge thanks for taking time out of I was going to say, you're busy. Yeah, all the days are busy days.
Yeah.
When you're the man at the top of the street all the way as well. So we do really appreciate you coming in to join us and talking us through what's happening on the field, off the field at Motherwell as well. And again, looking forward. Can't wait for the Hertha game. So very much looking forward to that as well. And hopefully you have a horrible family experience after that as well.
I'm not sure if I should say thanks to that, but thanks.
Well, thanks very much, Kyrk. Appreciate it.
Guys.
Just. This is super interesting, and again, thanks Kyrk for his time and coming in. As I say, he doesn't have a quiet time of the year, as it turns out, so just endlessly busy. So yeah, huge thanks to him for coming in to join us and explain a little bit about kind of how we've got to where we've got to and what he's working on in the meantime as well. But as we've got you here, Derek, find a little bit more of what's going on at the society. We made $1 million by May.
We did, yeah. I think that's probably a good place to start. We launched the campaign in March, make $1 million by May. And this was, solely down to our members. I don't think those on the board can take too much credit about that. It's to do with more people putting money in, more people joining the society, more people renewing their memberships. For me, I think it's a landmark moment for the football club.
Hugely so.
I think it's a landmark moment for fan ownership. And I think it really sets out the direction of where we want to be going as a fan-owned football club. I think it's important that we continue to listen to our members, and I think I touched on it in the last podcast. I think people will probably have seen an improvement in our communications. There's a lot more things going out to members. This podcast's been a good example of that as well. But the Make $1 Million campaign, it really puts the fans at the heart of everything that we do, and I think hopefully what that shows is, if we can all give a wee bit back, if we're in a position to do so, that we can really drive the football club forward in the right direction.
More than anything as well, it just feels like there's a real degree of momentum around everything that's happening with the society as well, which from someone kind of from the outside and slightly on the inside looking in as well, and having targets and obvious things here as well, which it sounds big and splashy, but it is just a very functional, this is very important for the football club and the development and the growth of society moving forward.
Yeah, and I think what we've been trying to do in terms of, we don't want to just be asking people to give us money and they don't get anything back. So part of this, getting to that $1 million milestone and part of, continuing to bring more money into this society, what we've been doing is a lot of fundraising initiatives. And I think probably a really good example of one recently was the Live the Dream event, which was, again, an excellent day in the calendar for those that played. Probably a few injuries the next day, and people with some very sore muscles that didn't know that they had. But another perfect example, how we can bring more money into the football club and into society, but also make people feel part of something.
100%.
So raised over £8,000. I think it was 8,175 or so through that event. But for me, more than that, you're giving people a unique experience that they don't usually get at other football clubs, in terms of they get to be a football player for the night. They come in and they've got their shirt in the dressing room with their name in the back, and they run out at Fir Park next to some of the former players, etc. So I think it's, how do we just make Motherwell Football Club and the Welsh Society more accessible as well? And I think that's a perfect example of how we've done that.
It's just the most childish pleasure in the world. Again, Kyrk rightly said earlier as well, again, can he be a player, so I'll be the chairman? Fine. I can't be a player, I can't be the chairman. I'm going to do the Live the Dream because that's going to be the closest I'm going to get to any of those things in there as well. So yeah, again, it was one of those evenings where you just saw things, bits and pieces of photos and guys just having the time of their life doing it.
Yeah.
Again, more than anything.
And that's the joys of being a fan-owned football club. You can do these things and you can put some time and effort and recognition back into your wider community and into your membership as well. I think another thing that's been happening at the society since we last caught up, and I'd imagine most people will be aware, but we've had 2 new members join the board
Steve
as
and
well.
David joining as well.
Yeah, so Stephen Rayside and David McFarlane. Great additions so far, and I'm sure they've got a lot to bring. Those that listened to the last podcast, if you've not, go back and listen to it. It was with Michael, and he's moved on, but I'm sure you'll still enjoy it. Stephen was on the last podcast, and he'll be on more of these going forward. We touched on it at the start. He's currently recovering from an operation at the moment, but I think Stephen will be a great addition, and David likewise as well. If you've got any questions for David or Stephen or anybody on the board, please come forward.
Just from the amount of messages I received from Stephen about ideas and things that we could do, we could have this person on the podcast, we'd be doing that. I thought about this. I think Stephen's going to be a tremendous addition, and David as well, but just Stephen's enthusiasm for just improving things and just improving, and his enthusiasm for Motherwell and looking to build on whatever is there is absolutely fantastic as well. So sad he's not with us today. Looking forward to seeing him again soon.
Absolutely, and David as well lives a bit further afield, doesn't live in Scotland, lives down in England, and I think as well. You know,
We're a broad judge.
David's business experience is fantastic. It's something that I'm really excited about having on board in the Welsh Society. But I think what's important as well is that we also realise that our membership is now not just local. It's people from all over the world. And it's sometimes probably quite a good thing to have people with an outside perspective in terms of they don't just live in Lanarkshire and see the same thing every week. You know, so I'm sure that David will have some excellent ideas and contributions that he can bring forward.
And obviously as well, something which is a hot topic, I think, at basically all times of the season and all times that they're going on. They've got a VAR consultation going on as well. What's the sort of thinking from the society behind that?
Yeah, so myself and David Cullinan have been working on this. The thinking behind it, first and foremost, is how do we find out what our members want, and how do we use their voice to not only benefit Motherwell but benefit Scottish football as a whole. So we put out the survey because we've had a lot of people get in touch with us and say, do you know what, we're not happy with VAR. I'm sure you'd be the same, Graeme.
I've heard a few people say it, yeah.
We've had a few murmurs and groans about that, and understandably, I'll be perfectly honest, put my cards on the table, not a Welsh Society view, but a personal one. I can't stand it. Yep. I think it really diminishes the matchday experience. I think it stops and starts the game far too much. So we put out this consultation basically saying to our members, what is your thoughts and feelings on VAR? The response was unanimous. I think there was 99.3% of respondents says that they want it either changed or scrapped altogether. So what we're going to do next with this data is take that a wee bit further. You know, I think people might have seen in the past couple of weeks there's been a few press releases on it. Quite a few media outlets have picked that up and says majority of shareholders at Motherwell Football Club, the majority of their members want VAR to be scrapped. We're going to reach out to other supporter-owned clubs and other supporter fan groups across Scotland and say, can you come forward and tell us what your members think as well? And if there's consensus there that, you know, it has to be reformed or it has to go, we would then like to take that to the governing bodies, and we'd like to take that a wee bit further to say, listen, this is what the vast majority of Scottish football fans think. Can we have some sort of action on that? And I'm not going to say that, you know, the Welsh Society is going to change the world overnight and we're going to scrap VAR or whatever else. But I think for me, first and foremost, it's very key that our members' voice is heard. And it's not just heard at, you know, Motherwell level, it's heard at a national level as well.
To me, it's just exactly the sort of thing that the society should be doing in that respect. And that if you're going to be truly representative of your members, ask your members. And members say something, members tell us something. And then we are in a position that other clubs that are not fan-owned, they're run by their boards and whatever else. Whatever the model is and whichever way you want to approach that, it's absolutely fine. But by replicating the same sort of consultation with our members at St Mirren, at Hearts, to find out what their view on that is as well. And maybe it's entirely different. Maybe it's an entirely different thing, and that's where that goes and that's where that ends. But again, it is certainly a thread not just to be pulling on, but something for the society to take and for Motherwell to be taking the lead on as well.
Absolutely, and this isn't just something that ends with VAR. You know, it's something that we've been thinking about for a long time as to how do we benefit Scottish football as a whole. We're going to be doing similar surveys and having similar conversations with our members about other topics. So if there's anything that people are listening to this that they think, you know, I go to the games each week and I'm really not happy about that, or they're delighted about it, you know, and they want other
we take good news as well.
Yeah, we take good news as well. I think what the next one will probably be is gathering people's views around alcohol at football.
Yep.
And I get that can be a contentious issue, but we want to know what our members think, because ultimately what that can do is it can also bring, if we were to bring it back, bring more revenue into the football club. So everything that we're trying to do is to look at how we can benefit Motherwell, but we can also benefit Scottish football as a whole. So yes, please, if there's anything that you think that the Welsh Society should be taking forward, get in touch with us. If you've got any questions at all that you think we should be asking, or you should be asking us, answering, and you should be asking us, please come forward. That's what we're here for. And I hope that as this podcast develops, it can be a platform for where we can listen to our members and we can discuss some of the topics that they bring on board, rather than me, you and Stephen coming up with what we think we should be talking about.
No, I'm far too important to listen to other people. No, absolutely. I couldn't echo that anymore. And on that note, I think that wraps us up for episode 2 of our podcast. Can only say thank you to Derek for joining me today. Big thanks to Kyrk for taking time out of his day to come and join us as well and talk us through a departure and an arrival, and probably some more departures and arrivals as well over the course of the summer. So a lot of things happen at the club, even though we're in the summer. We're frighteningly close to the start of the season already.
It almost feels like there's no summer break anymore, doesn't it?
6 weeks, and we've got the Hertha Berlin game in between there as well. So looking forward to it, because my Saturdays have no structure anymore. So thank you very much, Derek, and thank you very much to the listeners. We will be back with episode 3 sometime soon.
Thanks very much, Graeme. Cheers.